Hi, I'm Sandy Petrosius, and welcome to the final of our 3 gun violence prevention study presentations. Uh, as you know, we had the gun violence panel in August with the Lake County officials, and then we had Professor Schwinn speaking about the Second Amendment last month. And just remind you, those are available. If you want to hear them or see them, just let us know and we'll send you the information. And another announcement, as you know, we've been working as a gun violence prevention committee for 4 League of Women Voters groups. Each of us in the committee took several of the questions that you are going to encounter on your consensus meetings when you meet with just your own league and consensus meetings. And there's a few of them. There's 24 of them. Each of us took several and we created pros and cons. And on Wednesday next week, October 22nd at 6:30 p.m., we're going to give you a warm-up and go through all those questions together so that you are going to be much more focused and your mind will be a little bit more focused when you go into your own consensus meetings in your own league. So be sure to register for that at the end of this meeting, and we hope you'll attend that. And during our work on gun violence prevention, we all make many claims. We state causes. We bemoan the impacts of gun violence. We argue about types of firearms. But are we stating facts or myths? And today I'm excited to present Kathleen Conlon Wasik. She spends her time delving into data about preventable violent deaths, domestic violence, suicides, and unintentional firearm deaths. Kathleen works on behalf of the Centers for Disease Control and the Illinois Department of Public Health, the Buehler Center for Health Policy and Economics with Northwestern University's Feinberg School of Medicine. And she is always exploring data collaboratively with communities. And tonight, she's going to help us learn how to find meaning in the data and maybe move away from myth into fact. And just a mention about housekeeping. If you want to ask questions, please put them in the chat. And if we have time, we'll get to them. And now, Kathleen.
Hi, everyone. It's just great to be here with you. I remember many years ago, we were working on gun violence with the League. I was working on gun violence prevention with the League of Women Voters. And actually, the system that you're going to see tonight is, I call it a League baby, because the League saw this system in its infancy, got behind it, and we now have 97% of the preventable violent deaths in the state of Illinois within this system, and that's because of the great work of the League of Women Voters. And always working behind the scenes, always the unsung hero, but I'd like you to see a little bit of your good work tonight. So we're honored to be here to talk to you about, as you enter into your gun violence prevention update study. I was working with Rosemary and she gave me some insights into what you were hoping to do tonight. I'm going to take a slice of the work that we're doing in domestic violence and show you some of the new things that are happening in that space across the state of Illinois and how this data is actually changing the conversation about domestic violence and what it's, how we're reframing it. So we're going to do some of that work tonight, and I've got 2 acronyms there, IVDRS and SUDORS. IVDRS is the Illinois Violent Death Reporting System, and SUDORS is the statewide unintentional drug overdose reporting system. It's basically what we're going to talk about tonight is one great big database. It's got 2 names, and we name it different things because the CDC funds it differently, and so that's why we have 2 names for it, but it's really one great big database with about 2,400 very different fields of information that can be populated around violent death. To give you a little bit of background before we get started, what we basically do is we take records that are generated at the time of a homicide or a suicide, a preventable violent death. And what we do is we we bring that information together, and we put it into we grab all that information and we put it into a database for you. And it's the only database of its kind in the state of Illinois. So we're collecting a lot of data, and our goal is that people use it. And that's what I'm hoping to do this evening, is to encourage you to use the data as a foundation for your harm reduction work. So tonight, I would like to start with giving you a little bit of education on how reports become data, how all this information is collected. And so, because data is, a lot of people are throwing around data. I have data in this and that, as Sandra was saying, but where does it come from? Who's behind it? What kind of detail is going into that work? And should you respect it? So I'd like to build some respect with you this evening to show you how we get our data and who's using our data across the state of Illinois. And then I put in some information from the CDC on firearm medical injury costs. I think they're important to look at in your study, and also a new report from one of our colleagues that is in the Journal of American Medicine this month, and on the costs of injury. And so we'll look at that. And then I have some really nice statistics that I took from the Eric Reinhardt's presentation on domestic violence presentation that he did earlier this month with Rachel Jacoby. And I thought that was great, so I put that in there too. And so
I'm
you
going
can
to
see that.
interrupt you to tell you that Eric just joined the meeting, so you can.
Oh, he
Wow.
did. Well, we're always a fan of Eric and the great work that his team does. And we do work with them very closely. But yeah, can't say enough about their good work. Then we're going to get into definitions, and this is where we're going to actually confuse you all a little bit. Believe me, when I started here, I was confused about these terms: domestic violence, intimate partner violence. And then our team added intimate partner problem violence, just to make it even more complicated for you. But it's really interesting to see how this is evolving in the state of Illinois, and how actually we're showing a lot of leadership in the way that we're looking at domestic violence and intimate partner problem violence. It's being seen across the United States. So we're doing some good work. Then we're going to look at the data, and the data that you're going to see is brand new. We've just had it approved by the CDC about a month ago, and you are the first group that's seeing it. And then we want to talk a little bit about community programming with data. And the reason why I want to do this is because for the first 6 months that I was presenting data to communities, people would look at the data and they'd go, "Oh my goodness, this is terrible." And then they'd all shake their heads and they'll go wander off. And we thought, that's not good. So we needed to get the community analyzing the data together and thinking around this data, and then looking at the resources that they have in community, and how we can use the data as a launching pad for harm reduction in a community, and by getting people to think together. And it's something we don't do a lot, and something we should do a lot more of. And then we'll wrap it up, hoping to get this all done in an hour. We'll see how well I do. Okay, so where does the data come from? So when the coroner's officer goes out and determines that there is a homicide or a suicide, or preventable violent death has occurred, a tremendous amount of information is generated by law enforcement, during the autopsy phase. One group that I don't have up here are the funeral directors. There's a tremendous amount of demographic information that's collected by our funeral directors, and all of that information comes to the coroner's office, and they will issue a death certificate and a death investigation report. And all of that information goes to the Illinois Department of Public Health, their vital statistics, and it's assigned an ICD-10 code there. Every 3 or 4 months, our team goes out and grabs the ICD-10 codes related to preventable violent deaths across the state of Illinois, and then our data abstractors, or people who are trained to look at all of these reports, all of this information, and get it into a database format, just reams of data. And they're putting it directly into the CDC system. And we're going to take a quick peek at that right now so you can see what our data abstractors look at. So I want you to see that they actually log on. We're working directly with the CDC system here, and they will give the death, the decedent will get an incident report. And then we will go in and start categorizing all of the elements of the data around that death. So we have the death certificate information and the coroner's report and all of that information I mentioned to you before. We are looking at homicides, deaths of undetermined intent, suicides, legal intervention, unintentional firearm injury, and we won't be talking about this much tonight, but unintentional drug overdose deaths. We will be taking that information and breaking it down into elements: demographic information, the cause of death, the weapon type, circumstantial information. I'm just giving you a few indicators of what, some of the elements that we're grabbing. But again, there's 2,400 fields, so it's a lot. And recent release information, mental health information about the decedent, information about the suspect, and then one of my favorite areas to look at is the narratives that our data abstractors create. It's like a 2 or 3 paragraphs summing up all of this information that is attached to the report itself. So what I want you to imagine right now is a massive database with tons of information in it. And we send all of that over, that's all sent to it's in the CDC system, but at a certain time of the year, 2 times a year, it's actually collected by them, reviewed by them. They send us back information that they have any questions that they have. We go through the review process again, and then finally they release it. And at that point, we can get the information to you. But who wants to look at, files with, a file with thousands and thousands of records in it? So what we do is we go in and we start asking questions of the data, and how we ask the questions, and how our team asks those questions, and how actually a lot of times how community members will ask us questions, and then we'll go back and ask questions, inquire of the database, to find information, to build some reports for you to look at. So this is a really collaborative process, and I'll explain one of those processes to you in a little bit. But before I do that, I wanted to let you know that across the state of Illinois, the data is used by many of the Illinois Department of Public Health. They use it. Our county health departments use it. Veterans groups use it. Fatality review teams across the state use it. Many not-for-profits, and we're also using it in I just put this in here, our block by block. And the reason why I wanted to mention that is to remind me, because here you're seeing, you're used to thinking of your health department like the Lake County Health Department, but the Lake County Health Department is part of a regional health department. So we can aggregate our data by county and then by region. So that we can pull either statewide reports, regional reports, county reports. Then we can go down further. One of the things that we started doing last year is we were giving reports to, to the city of Chicago, their health department, and to various community groups in the city of Chicago. And we just kept getting, So what we found out is that the city, even though you think of the city of Chicago, it's broken up into communities, and those communities think of themselves in a particular way. So we had to adjust the data to look like the way the community thinks about themselves. So we broke our data up into near south, southwest, west, And all of a sudden, people were very interested in the data in Chicago. So it shows you the strength of the system too. And on the west side of Chicago last year, we did a lot of work in the Garfield, the East and West Garfield Park area. And what we did down there is we were able to identify streets in those communities that we were able to go in and drop off information about where connecting people with resources in those communities. So from the zip code going up and up and up and right up into the state level, where people are using the data for strategic planning and things like that. For not-for-profit groups, they can use it in their grant applications, monitoring change, and so on and so forth. Now, over in the corner, you're going to see it, a slide. I think you can see it. I can't see it. But do you see a little picture of the state of Illinois? I don't know if you can see it. I was probably on the other slide that you saw that. Let me go back really quickly, and I want to show you this because it's important. Let's go. No, it's not going to help me get there. But anyway, across the state of Illinois, let me see, it's on the next page. Nope, it's not. I'm going to have to plug it in right now. We have 97% of the preventable violent deaths within the system at this time. And that's a tremendous amount of work. But in the rural areas, some of the rural areas, we don't have, the coroners there do not give us data. And it's not because they're bad guys, they're under-resourced, they're working very hard. But you know, I do want to make a plug for getting additional resources to these underfunded rural communities so that we can get the data. Because with this data, it helps health departments get grants at the state and federal level, and it also helps law enforcement get grants. So if you're already under-resourced and you can't even get the data to help you get the funding that you need. So it's an important element that we need to be thinking about in the future, and we're always thinking about it. But okay, so I wanted you to have this. This is information that came from the CDC around the costs of preventable violent deaths. And the numbers are, as you can see, are very high, but you can look at this as you, maybe as you go through your study, it may be of use to you. And I have the full report. There's a link to it down here in the corner. And another report that Alex Ludwig, one of our team members, recently came out with, I co-authored a report on the costs of injury, the cost to hospitals for the original intake. These numbers that you're going to see on this report are for the original intake for people going to the emergency and inpatient care at hospitals. It doesn't look at the disabilities of people who have suffered from gun violence. It doesn't look at those ongoing costs, but it'll give you some insights into the costs that of firearm injury. And then the other thing that this report shows us is that, you know, many of these people do not have health insurance, and so these costs are being taken up by the community at large, and so it is huge. And I feel really weird talking about injury and harm and deaths and relating it to money. It just seems so crass to me, because there's so many other aspects of what happens when a person dies who's violently in a community, who sees it, the children who are witness it, and it's just so many more. The emotional cost and the emotional toll to communities is just incalculable. So, all righty. So I want to give a little bit of a plug here. We're starting to get burrowing down into the information here. We have a data dashboard that is on the Illinois Department of Health website. And there we have information on violent, it's very hard for me to see. Oh, I can move this screen around a little bit. So this is, this particular screen is violent deaths by manner and year across the state of Illinois. And you will also see when you go out there intimate partner violence, and you will see child homicides and suicides. And you will be able to go in and look at either by the state or look by county or pick a group of counties, and you'll be able to see the data. And you are basically looking at demographic information. You're not going to be seeing circumstantial information when you're out there, but it's a really good resource and a good place to get started thinking about what's going on in the state of Illinois relative to these preventable violent deaths. And I have a link to it here. And I'm going to be getting this this presentation to Rosemary tomorrow morning, maybe Friday morning, Rosemary, because I'm presenting all day tomorrow. And so I'll get it to you and you can share it with anyone that's interested in it.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is some information that I stole from Rachel Jacoby's presentation earlier this month when she presented at the, out on domestic violence at Rosalind Franklin University. I thought it was great information. And the one thing that I want you to take a look at here is that they're talking about intimate partners and intimate partner violence. So I want you to bear that in mind. You see domestic violence and you see intimate partner violence. And there's some information here. I might drive you all crazy by moving this around, the screen around, but there's also some information here from the CDC. And it says that about 81% of women and 26% of men experience contact, sexual violence, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime. Those numbers are staggering, but they're also underreported. So we'll move on. And this is where I get to something that I know that the League loves, and that's definitions. As a member of the League of Women Voters, I know that our definitions are important. So we got you here tonight by talking about domestic violence. But if you went to the CDC's website and you typed in domestic violence, what would pop up is intimate partner problem. Intimate partner violence. That's what will present itself to you, because the CDC doesn't really work with the term domestic violence. We all do, but they don't. So keep that in mind, intimate partner violence, and there is the definition for it. But also, so when the CDC goes out and you see terms like intimate partner violence, they are pulling data from systems like ours, like our Illinois Violent Death Reporting System is one system, and they're the same type of system as in every state in the union. And when they are pulling these big reports across the United States, they're thinking of intimate partner violence as homicides and legal intervention, just those two categories. Now, last year, because of some work that we were doing up in Winnebago County, we expanded the definition out and we added suicide. And when we added suicide to the definition, we now call it intimate partner problem / violence. We added a little bit to it. And what happened there is that we were able to really get, for the first time up in Winnebago County, they were able to get the extent of intimate partner problem violence in their community. And they got the idea that they're working with is that it is a major driver of violence in their community. And when we looked at it from the suicide perspective, they started seeing that this was a good definition for them. It took them a few months. We worked together for a few months, because this is really something hard to get your mind around, because when you see the numbers in a few minutes, it might be jarring when you see some of the information that comes up. But I worked with that team up in Winnebago County for about 3 or 4 months. They were resistant to thinking about the data this way, but they ultimately decided it was the way they had to go. And from here, they got us in touch with the statewide domestic violence fatality review team. And this approach is now being taken up by ICEJA and by the by statewide fatality review teams. So So what do we do differently? So we're starting to get into our data now. And so I talked a little bit earlier about creating meaning around data. I'm sorry for moving this around on you a lot. Oh, that's helpful. So what we did was, this is your first screen of the data year over year from 2015 up to 2023. Our data is always a little bit behind because of the process it takes to gather it all up and to get it approved by the CDC. But all of this data that we're going to be looking at tonight are considered legal documents. And so they're very rigorously reviewed. So when we looked at, what you're going to see tonight is homicides, suicides, legal intervention. You're going to see the criteria of jealousy. Law enforcement marked these incidents as jealousy. The coroner, medical examiner marked them as jealousy, crisis jealousy. And also stalking. So this is a little bit different than we had before. So now what I want you to do is I want you to look. Well, we have started, like I said earlier, we've started working a little bit differently with communities, and we have now several steps that we put communities that we're working with, small groups that we're working with through so that they can develop meaning from the data and really to get the group mind going on this information. We really can't do that tonight in the format that we're using, but what I want you to do is wherever you are, wake up, shimmy up to your computer, okay? And I want you to start, I want you to think of yourself as an analyst, and I want you to look at this data, and I want you to put in the chat something that pops. I don't want you to sit and agonize over it. Just say, this looks different for me. This pops for me. I'm seeing something here that I didn't see before. And just put it in the chat or just write it down. Just make a note. Okay? So you've got your first screen, and we're going to go through the first 3 or 4 screens. I'll go through slowly, and then I'm going to pick up the speed. Okay. Okay, so not a lot of talking from me. This is your time, okay, individually to look at the data and to make a mental note, put in the chat or write it down what pops for you. Don't worry about being perfect because the perfection actually comes by working in community and developing meaning together. You won't have that, but you'll get an idea of how this is going to play out in a little bit. Okay, so keep going. Okay. And now I'm going to pick up the speed a little bit. Keep making notes. Okay. Next one. Alrighty. I'm going to move along a little bit. Okay, one of the things that you're seeing now is you're seeing no and yes statements, right? And the yeses are hard yeses, but the no's could be maybes. And the reason why they're maybes is because the data, a lot of this information is collected. This particular information, the argument timing, is collected by, either next of kin and by the funeral director, and the timing of this is, you know, the people are, it's probably the worst moment in their lives. And so we don't always get the data, or a family member may not know, or they may be stressed out and feel that they can't answer. So a no isn't always a hard no. Okay. Alrighty. I do apologize for moving you quickly. If we were in person, you would have a little more time with this. Okay. Sandra's still reading. I always feel bad moving you along when Sandra's still reading. Okay. All right. Okay. And that's the end. That's you have done you've just gone through very quickly. The first part of the way that we're now beginning to work with communities in developing meaning with the information. The next part of this would be that you would work with a partner and you would both review your notes together. And then after you do that, and you would come to some consensus of what you were seeing and what you were thinking about, we would expand, we would break you up from your partner, and you would go find 2 or 3 other people to work with, and you would compare your notes again. And then we would start asking you some questions. Um, you know, does this data make sense to you? How is it different than what you see in your community? If you were to work with a team of people in your community on this issue, who would you bring to the table? Who's normally at the table? Who's not at the table? Who's impacted by this? Who's not at the table? It's an important question. And it's one I think we don't ask enough. And then what we would do is we would ask the team members a few other questions, and then we would have you report out your findings. And each group of 4 or 5 would report out their findings. And then together, you would start to see patterns developing in your group. And you'll have done it by yourself, with a small group, with a larger group. And it's the beginning of creating meaning. But this is only data. And it needs what the meaning comes from you and your work and how you can do it in your community, because every community has different resources. Okay. So here are some of the fatality review teams, domestic violence fatality review teams around the state that are now using, have been formed and that are using, that will be using, are using, or will be using this data. So if you know folks that are in these areas, leagues that are in these areas who would like to be on these teams, or definitely should be at the table, you may want to contact them. And there are new ones forming all the time. I think the one in Lake County started last year. Yeah, so, and now, yeah, here we go. So what we do is our group goes out and we support our communities by having conversations like this, co-presenting with our partners, which I'm doing tomorrow at Prevention First, and then later on Saturday at the NAMI statewide conference, we do that. And we work with our partners when we do this. We don't, not just us, it's in community, we do this. And so one of the things we do is we also don't expect community groups that we work with to come to us with a fully formed question. If there's data that you're struggling with, if you saw something that you can't pull it together, but you think there's something there, like what happened up in Rockford, Winnebago County last year when they were really struggling, and they came to us, and then we took the struggle on because we know the data. Our team knows the data. They know what to go look for, and we can, working together, we can really put this database that belongs to you. It's paid for by your taxpayer dollars to work for you in your community. Okay. So I can't emphasize that enough. Alrighty, so I'm going to wrap up my portion of the presentation. And I know you have more things that you want to do, but I'll just wrap this up and then we can get into Q&A. You will get a copy of this presentation. You can go and look at our reports online, reports that we have developed for other communities since we started working with this system in 2015. And if you see a report out there that you think, oh, that's really great, but it's from 2018, the data's old, that's okay. We can update it, not a problem. You can go and look at our statewide unintentional drug overdose data. If you see a report there that you like, it may be older, may have an approach that you like, we may want to change it in some way, not a problem. We can help you with that. We have our dashboard for the IVDRS. We've already discussed that. We also have a dashboard for the statewide unintentional drug overdose reporting system. It's really funky, and I suggest you go look at it. My colleague who designed this system has just an incredible mind for presenting data, so it's worth just going to see what she's doing there. It's fascinating. For those of you, and I know with the league, you all like your definitions and your dictionaries. So we do have a data dictionary for every field that is in the Illinois Violent Death Reporting System. So you can go look up the data dictionary and find out what a variable means. All those variables that you saw before that you're reading through, what does that mean? What were they looking at? How do they define that? It's all out there. And the same for the unintentional drug overdose reporting system. We have a newsletter that we can get to you. If you're interested in our newsletter, just send me an email. And we're also out on LinkedIn. Recently, we started developing congressional reports. And these, we are hoping that our congressmen and women will see this and realize how important prevention is, and to the states and to our communities, and so that will continue to fund it. And we've had great reception. And then we have some reports out on the CDC that you can take a look at too, and my email. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. Now it's up to you. So I have some questions. I don't know if I didn't get a chance to look in the chat. I don't see the chat here, but if anyone did put information in the chat, Rosemary, if you could grab that and send it to me later. I love to see what you guys are thinking about because it helps me think better.
Well, early on, Mandy wanted to know if this database is available to the public, and I think you answered that pretty much.
Yes, it's absolutely available. It belongs to you. It is data that is collected and belongs to you. So you can go out to the dashboard and look at data out there for IVDRS and for SUDORS. And you can go look at the reports that we have created. You can, if you've got questions, then you can get in touch with us and we can see if we can maybe run some reports that'll help you get to the problem that you're trying to solve. So yeah.
That's wonderful. If you can end your screen, we actually have a little time and we can bring people's faces back on the screen.
I do have one thing though.
You do?
One more thing. I was going to save it to the very end,
Oh,
but
okay.
it's we need I need feedback. I love feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. You cannot hurt my feelings. So if you can grab this QR code, and there's just a few questions there. You can answer them at the end. Not a big deal. I think there's only 4 questions, and it will really help us think about how to do, connect with you community groups better. So I appreciate that.